All right, Robert. Hey, thanks for coming on again, man. We're going to talk a little bit about podcasting, and we're going to do this, in a fashion that people can interact with us through the live stream. So this is going to be really exciting. And thanks for coming on and taking some time.
I'm glad to be here. Let's have a fun chat and help some people.
Yeah. So we're going to talk podcasting. I know that's your thing. That's what you do. With over 815 podcast episodes recorded and 15 books and so many interviews, I would say that you're a master at this because nobody would know so much about it to put out so much content if they didn't master it. So,
but I still feel like I'm behind. I still feel like there's people out there with thousands of episodes, and I'm always thinking about like, well, did I do enough interviews this month, or am I talking to enough people? Even with all of that effort put in, it's still not enough. We still have to be pushing even further than we think we can go.
Yeah, but your process has been one of the best processes I've ever been through. I mean, I have, podcasting is more than just what you see here, getting on the mic and on a camera and talking. I mean, your process from onboarding to production to post-production to follow-ups, you have a real good system in place. I mean, talk a little bit about that, because most podcasters, we just get on recording, and then all of a sudden, after a month or two, somebody says, hey, is that episode out yet? Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm supposed to post-produce it, or I'm supposed to promote it. You've got a real... How did you come up with such a good system?
I honestly don't know. I think that it came down to, I looked at podcasting like building my list. And the reason why I even got into this was, I mean, I was doing interviews before podcasting was even a thing, before it even had a name. And what used to happen is I would be at home and I would kind of talk to whoever was in my circle, right? I heard I needed a network on like message boards or Facebook or social media, things like that. But as you know, like it takes up so much time, and you play around on Facebook or go into a Facebook group and you're like, I just spent 3 hours. Did I really get anything accomplished? And so when I was way younger, I heard that, okay, you have to go to offline events, right? You have to go to conferences. And I went to a couple of those, and you go and you'd see some speakers and you meet a few people, and then that would be it. You would get back on a plane, you'd go home and you'd say, well, I met some people, but nothing really came of that. And so after doing that a few times, I realized, okay, we go there and we'll exchange business cards. But instead of just having a stack of business cards that I'll throw out when I get home, I'll say, let me interview you about what it is that you do, about your product. And that worked out really well, because in a networking environment, it would shut down the conversation super fast. One person wouldn't monopolize like an hour of my time. I'd meet the person I needed to meet, 10 minutes, have a chit chat, move on to the next person. And then when I got home, now there is the follow-up sequence, and I would be delivering value, and the person would want to speak to me because I'm here trying to amplify their message. I'm trying to get the word out about what it is they're doing. And now that podcasting is a thing, it's that same idea. It's just more organized, that there are people out there like you and me who are looking on podcasts, who are looking on shows to be on. And if you decide that you want to have a podcast and have a show, which, I mean, I think that every business owner needs to have a podcast, and even a lot of like 9-to-5 career people need to have podcasts. But it's, making content and all that's great, even though Facebook, YouTube is full of content. And what's more important is the people. And so you need to have a podcast out there and find some real like guest experts in your industry, people that will make you look smart because you had them on, and have them on, have a conversation like this, and ask them some maybe different, unique questions that you think your audience wants to know about. And then that's a person that kind of is someone who is on your list. And I have a big, long spreadsheet of all these 840 guests I have now on my show. And they're all people that I kind of, know on social media and I chit chat with. And if I know someone who needs a referral out to this person that does like a funnel or copywriting or something like that. I kind of have this whole Rolodex. And then I have all these people that I can follow up with that some of them I bought coaching from, some of them have bought services from me. So it's a whole list of people that can help you in your business. And it's not just content. And I think that is the thing that people are missing about podcasting. They're so worried about this audio or this video or what you're going to say. I mean, it's all about the people.
That makes so much sense. So really you're saying, I mean, podcasting is all about the networking. And you're right. I mean, we get so tied up into how do I look? You know, how do I sound? You know, what mic am I using? What lights am I using? Things of that nature. But at the end of the day, really, you're building a business relationship with somebody. And if you're trying to grow your business, you're not going to get business because you have a fancy mic or nice lighting. They're going to say, oh, man, I want to do business with you because you have such a beautiful, you know, background in the back. You know, it's like, no, they're not. It's really the relationship you're building. So thank you for that, because I've fallen very much victim of that, you know, spent a lot of time and effort, and more time than anything, and money, you know, setting up and resetting up podcast environments, when at the end of the day, none of that matters as much as the relationships being built. So
yeah, and it matters a little bit. Like it's a good first impression. We don't want to have like a bunch of dirty clothes in the background or anything like that. And I like your space, and it's a good first impression. But if you imagine like, okay, like you pick whoever your hero is, like say like Gary Vee or someone like that. If Gary Vee was on your show, and if he was in the back of a taxi cab, or if he was on the street and he was interviewing like this on an intersection in New York City, like you wouldn't care that much as long as he had something good to say, and vice versa. If you were on his show and he was just in like a closet somewhere, well, it's a little minor issue. It's a little bit of the first impression, but the person, the content, what they say, what they help with, that's the most important thing.
yeah, that is. Now, when you're talking about like the networking, do you say, I need somebody that's talking about this topic, and so I'm going to actively go out and find somebody that talks about that topic? Or do you kind of find people and find what they're specialized in and say, oh, okay, well, this would be a good topic to talk about. They are, you know, a person that does this, so let me interview them about that. Or is it a combination of both?
I mean, it probably could be a combination, but I would say that I mostly look for someone who's in my space or adjacent to my space, who's doing something new. Because the problem that's easy to fall into, that with what you just mentioned there, is if you say, I'm only going to interview copywriters, then you're going out and you're finding like 20 of the same person, and you might have 20 of the same sorts of conversations. And then and then there's also the problem of, you say, well, like I'm a copywriter and I'll interview other copywriters. Well, then why would I want to be on your show if you're my competition, or if we don't have anything new to talk about? And so what's really cool about podcasting is if you can think about who's in your world, who's in your universe, who's maybe someone new and interesting, then you basically have an unlimited number of episodes to talk about. And so, like, for example, I help some of these doctors out there who do things like integrative medicine and aesthetic medicine, and things like making you look better and live longer and things like that. And a lot of these people, they're just like, well, what topics can I talk about? And they think of like 20 ideas, and then they run out of ideas, or they say, let me interview other doctors. And then they don't know who wants to be on their show. But if these doctors out there, if they think about, well, I could interview some of my best patients, I could interview some of these like medical vendors, people that I bought from. I can find other authors who maybe they're not doctors, but they talk about like medical topics. And so we're kind of in different spaces there. And so thinking about, okay, like what topics do I want to talk about? That's all good. But finding the kind of off the beaten path, interesting people. And if you can kind of find someone way out there who you kind of make it work in a different way, that's a lot of fun too. Because like I've interviewed people on my show who, like, there's one lady who she teaches weight loss, But she's like some Indian lady, and she teaches, well, you can make these foods and add these like Indian spices and make this healthy food taste good. And my podcast is the marketer of the day. So I'm like, well, that's cool because you're taking something that's kind of bland and boring and then finding a new exciting way to market it. And you're making money with it in weight loss. So I've interviewed some lady that she visits prisons, and she uses some kind of like drawing, sketching therapy to help people with their mental health. And I'm like, well, how do you get the word out with that? How do you market yourself? So even if there's some guest out there who you think like, man, I would never talk to this person. This person is completely unrelated to what I do. That is still someone that you should have on your podcast for the very reason that there's someone that you normally would not cross paths with. And I mean, if it's someone that you normally cross paths with, then like, why are you even doing this networking thing anyway?
Yeah. So you said she takes and spices up kale chips. When you said bland, I was like thinking kale chips. I was like, yeah, that's bland. But it's very
she adds like the turmeric or something like that.
Yeah, it makes kale chips nice and tasty. Because I remember the first time I had them, I was like, this is like eating cardboard. What is this?
And you're like, I don't get it. What's the hype all about? Yeah.
Well, the thing I was thinking is you're going to lose weight because you're going to stop eating. It's like, yeah, I'm going to lose weight because I'm going to just not eat this at the moment.
It will turn you off of all food. Yes.
Yes, definitely. Now, here's one interesting thing that you're doing. So you mentioned your clients. And one of the challenging things that I have seen when building out marketing strategies for companies is when you start talking about they should do video and they should do podcasts and so forth, different type of professionals aren't really used to getting in front of the camera or the mic. So they're not like social media influencers. So they're not, that's not the time that they shine. So it's really hard to get an attorney or a doctor or somebody of that nature to actually get in front of a mic and in front of a camera and do a podcast. So, it's like crickets, or which, like you say, what's the topic? What should I talk about? And then they start getting into, I guess you would say, industry jargon to where they're not as personable with the audience. They're more lecturing. So how do you help coach like your clients to get them comfortable with doing podcasts and being authentic to themselves, but not being in a, I guess you would say, lecturer capacity to where they're really flowing with their podcast? How do you work with your clients in regards to that?
Well, so there's a few things to think about with that. I mean, one thing is that your clients need to just do it. Right. Mm-hmm. It's a choice between, do you want to market in this new era that we're moving into, or do you want to try and keep on struggling and working way too hard and, go back to the yellow pages or the classified ads. This way is way more fun. This way is way easier. It is awkward at first. And in any of these industries, I'm sure that they can find maybe not competitors, but say there's like a bankruptcy attorney in California. You can find some bankruptcy attorney in Florida who's like doing really well and who seems to have their marketing like really dialed in. And I think early on, I think we've all felt the same way, but early on, I really wanted to just hide behind the computer screen and not be on camera. But then I got a little mad because I saw all these other people who weren't even that great and they were on camera and they were doing way better than me. And I'm like, all right, I have to step it up, because if I'm even 10% as good as some of these clowns who are getting all these views, all this attention, all these followers, all these clicks, like I really need to step it up. And I think that, so you mentioned about worrying about falling into the jargon. And I think that the key there is sound bites and in answering people's questions. And sometimes on YouTube, I'll randomly find, just not even looking, I'll find some lawyer who has like a 3-minute or like a 5-minute video on like, well, what type of like, business entity should you set up? And it's like answering a question that a potential future client would be asking. Or like just last night, I had to replace like a valve inside the back of a toilet. And so I went on YouTube like we all do and looked up a little tutorial on how to get it done. And so there are people out there who are stuck, who need your help they need your services. They don't know where to turn to. Maybe they've been searching Google for weeks, and maybe they come across YouTube. Maybe they find a video you made. Maybe they found a clip that you pulled out of a video podcast interview, something like that. But there are people that are hurting, they're in pain, they're stuck, they're frustrated. And if they find your video and you have a call to action and there's a link there that goes to a landing page and all that good stuff, then that is a path for them to find you. And even if someone is not in your geographic area or something like that, you can get kind of these amplifiers, these fans, these people that they like and they smash the subscribe button, they leave comments for you and things like that. And you can just build up this kind of following by being this person that dispenses this helpful 3 to 5 minute advice, giving answers to questions. And then what's cool, and you know this too, Jeff, is that the more you do this, the stronger the muscle becomes. And so if you're the kind of person that is on podcasts and creates videos and answers these sorts of problems, then the ideas will just flow, right? You'll be like, oh man, here's an idea for like 5 other podcasts. And now I've got an idea for like two new books. And so you look where the hurt is, you look at the people that are not finding the answer and you do it. And then the content doesn't have to be perfect. And many times you might make a video or get on a podcast and you're kind of fleshing out in your head ideas for future book content or future, public speaking appearances, stuff like that. So focus on the people that are beginners, that are brand new, who are scared. They're looking for you. They're looking for some quick answers. And if you can answer a couple of those early on questions, like how do I fix the toilet tank, then they can find you for more information about like further plumbing services.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. And really one thing that I too is find what you're comfortable with as far as how you are comfortable delivering it. So for instance, for myself, whenever I do talking head videos, I get too much in my own head. So I feel like I'm lecturing, even though I might not be lecturing. I just feel like I am. So I'll overthink it, and you'll start to see me pause and think about what I'm gonna say next and so forth. But when I do interviews like this, I'm having a conversation, and I enjoy having these conversations. So I don't think as much, overthink as much of what we're going to talk about. It's just a conversation. So I'm more comfortable with these type of interviews. So finding out what you're comfortable with and how you're comfortable relaying the information helps. If you're not a person that wants to be solo, then do interview style. And like you were saying, find those questions. You may even have a friend get on you and ask you those questions, and you just answer the friend. So you have something to bounce off of. But the most important thing is to do something. So, there are some people that are just good, just getting on the camera by themselves, and they're entertaining enough and so forth. But if you're an introvert or you're not comfortable, find ways to be comfortable. So.
And I can totally relate to freezing like a deer in headlights when the camera turns on. And I think that whenever, like if I have to sit down and look at a camera and record a video, I'm thinking in my head about like a specific person whose question that I'm answering. And you always hear about that marketing crap about, well, have a customer avatar and who's your ideal client. And I think that's kind of hokey, but I get what the intention is. But what I like even more specifically is if there's a person I came across on social media, or if I did like a consultation call, or even like a coaching call for an existing client, if they asked me a question or if they mentioned something, then I think in my head, like, okay, I'll record a video, and in my imagination, I'll think that person is the only person that's going to be watching this video, and they're not. Other people will watch it later on. But like, if someone's like, well, what is the best WordPress theme? Then I'm like thinking like, oh, okay, well, Jeff out there wants to know what the best WordPress theme is. So I'm going to record this 5-minute video talking about what the best WordPress theme is for Jeff and not mention his name. And then that just makes it flow. And that makes me not think about, well, am I being like a lecturer? Am I pontificating? Am I being too much in like the academic realm? And the thing that I think really helps me so much, Jeff, as far as making content that is exciting for me and that is just the right length, is I've got this book called Why, What, How to, What If. And any piece of content I run it through this formula, and we don't have time to like get in all kinds of details, but any piece of content, you start with why. Like, why are you watching this video? What are we trying to accomplish? And then you move into what it, or you should move into what, sorry. So you go from why to what. Why is why am I watching? What are we going to be doing? What are the tools? What are the principles? We're not quite getting into solving the problem. We're just saying, here's what your problem was, and then here's what we're about to do to solve it. And then the third out of 4 phases is how to, which is here's how you solve the problem. Here's the 4 steps to do it, or here's like the 3 decisions you need to make. And then once you explain those steps, then you get into what if, which is now that you've solved this quick problem, what are the possibilities? What if you solve this problem? Now here is the thing you should go out and do. Now here's the next step it leads to. But whenever I'm thinking, well, how do I even answer this, or how do I keep it interesting? Why, what, how to, what if makes like a 3-minute or a 5 minutes piece of content really easy to make, really fun and easy to digest.
And that makes sense. And when I saw your book about that, the what ifs is funny. The what ifs would caught my attention the most. I like, what if? I'm thinking, okay, what's the what if? What if? And now that you explained it, that's, what are the possibilities? So yeah,
and what's interesting about that is different people have different sort of minds. And so you're a what if guy. You're the kind of person that you're excited about the possibilities. You're excited about what next. And some people are what people. Some people are how to people. Just give me the steps. And so by going through these 4 things, we can make sure that we get the attention of the right people, such as me and such as you.
Yeah. And that makes sense. We're all different. And that gets you out the avatar of just one particular person with one particular type of message. So tell me this now, when we're talking about business podcasts, how have you helped your clients overcome self-serving podcasts? And I'm trying to figure out how to word this. You can see my eyes moving side to side. I'm all in my head now, but a lot of podcasts is just a long commercial. How do you get them out of that to make their podcast more engaging and interesting and not just a big pitch fest?
I mean, I think that a pitch fest every now and then is okay. The problem is just if it's always that. And so I think it's cool to sometimes like show off what you've been doing, but if you've earned it, right? If people have a reason to listen to what you're doing. And I think it comes back to some of these things we've been talking about here today of how it's about solving the problems for real people and how it's about the people and the guests that you have on. So I would say to kind of just sort of repeat ourselves a little bit, that if your podcast is too self-promotional or self-serving or too caught in the weeds with yourself, then get some other guests on and talk other people up and make some other people look good, because you can still get to some of those same marketing principles and you can still put in your podcast sponsor or your commercial at the end. But I would say stop being so selfish and bite the bullet as far as your nervousness, even though your guests are probably more nervous than you are when they're on your show. So like talk to some people and get some guests on and make them look good, because they will be the people that you can follow up back with. We talked about that in the beginning, and promote their episode, because you can choose to be selfish, right? You can choose to say, I'm just going to record these 20 episodes and talk about me, but where will your traffic come from? How will you get people to listen to your podcast? Versus say over the next 2 months, you get 20 different guests on your show, 20 different episodes. Well, those are 20 different people with 20 different email lists, with 20 different Facebook following, 20 different LinkedIn pages, 20 different Instagram posts, and they can all be posting that episode where they appeared on your show, willingly or not. Because let's say that someone says, okay, yeah, sure, I'll post a link on my Facebook page to get more attention. But let's say they're lazy or they don't do it. Well, on Facebook and Twitter, there's a thing called tagging, right? So one of my favorite funny things to do is I have someone such as you, Jeff, and I think you're on my show like 5 years ago, I think. Yeah. And I will post the episode that you've been on Twitter, and I'm guessing over the years it might have been like 30 or 40 times, like every few weeks, and I say, here is episode 128 with Jeff Beal on the Marketer of the Day podcast. We talked about this, Mr. Marketology, and we put the tweet, and it has these keywords. So that way, if someone's searching for this, they find it. But I also do like the @ sign, and I tag you. I tag your Twitter username. So if someone is looking up your Twitter account, they will see that I tagged you. And what are you going to do? Untag me? No, you won't, because you were on my show. It would hurt you if you were not promoted in that way. And same thing if I go to Facebook and tag you there. And so if the reason why your podcast is so selfish is because you say me, give me traffic, well, you can get way more traffic if you just kind of think more long term and talk other people up and use their following, their influence to get more people to your show. So I think it's more of a long term than a short term strategy. And like you can choose whichever way you want, right? Short term seems like a lot of work. It'll stop working. You'll get frustrated, versus long term is more of like a easy does it. It's playing the long game, and it's building real relationships. So be long term, not short term.
And it actually works. I mean, the funny part about it is Robert used to do that all the time. And it even more than that, it keeps your mind. So it's a good follow-up method, because all of a sudden, months later, I would get a ping and it would be the episode. I'm like, oh yeah, that was on that episode, which makes me then say, I wonder what Robert's doing. Hey, Rob, what you been up to? Blah, blah, blah. So it starts another conversation. And over the years, I would see it and I was like, oh yeah, I wonder what Robert's doing. So it's a great follow-up tool as well. That's why I said you have a superior system when you do your podcast, because you definitely keep top of mind. Every few months, I'll see a ping and so it's not like all of a sudden out the blue email that comes out the blue saying, hey, we need to talk. It's more of, oh yeah, Robert just promoted me. Out of gratitude and reciprocity, I need to share this with my audience. And I also need to see what he's up to, because I haven't talked to him in a few months. So I mean, that's a great strategy.
Yeah, and it's like if you want someone to help you, doesn't it make sense that you should be helping them, and especially helping them first? That way they see like, man, if I was on Robert's show and he sent 1,000 clicks to my website, like imagine what he can actually do if we really work together. And if you say, well, I don't have that big of a list, I can't send 1,000 clicks. Well, what if you had Jeff on your show 5 years ago, and every month you re-promoted that episode, and every time you sent 20 clicks, that is still a way to get there. And as far as like making the follow-up work, like it's not that organized of a process as it seems. Like there's all these, social media tools, like, there's like Planable and Edgar. And I'm sure like any of your listeners probably even already have a favorite, but you load up your Twitter account with all these automatic posts. And then, you keep a spreadsheet and say, here's my podcast, here's all my episodes, here's all my guests. And it doesn't have to be any more organized than, say, once a day, 5 days a week, you say, I'm going to spend 10 minutes just contacting 5 of my guests. And if contacting means I'll post about this person on LinkedIn, I'll send a message to this person on Messenger. What if you just contacted 5 people per day? And it could be 5 new podcast guests. It could be following up with 5 old podcast guests, but like slow and steady, something every day to get it done. And it's going to add up over time. And again, like we said, that whole Gary Vee example that we kind of thought up on the fly is you out there listening or watching this podcast of Jeff's, who is your number one favorite hero? And if it's Gary Vee, then imagine if Gary Vee were to come on your show, right? Number one, why the heck would he even bother? So think about like what you could offer a Gary Vee type of person long-term to come on your show. And number two, if Gary Vee was on your show, wouldn't you want to always be reminding the whole world that you and Gary Vee were together on a podcast? So that way, if someone was looking him up or like respected him, then you could kind of also have access to his followers. And number three, wouldn't you want to every now and then just have a little chat or send a quick little message to Gary Vee, and he would almost have to at least read your message, maybe respond to your message, because he met you face to face instead of just, blasting and spamming stuff. In this day and age, the people that are looking for solutions, they're looking for like an exact solution, right? They're looking for, how do I fix this exact brand of toilet? Or I'm looking for this exact type of coach in my coaching business. And I think that it's a numbers game. And in this day and age, you have to really think about, like, can I be on just a bunch of shows? Can I be talking to a bunch of people? Can I be one-on-one connecting to a bunch of potential clients? Because I mean, people are picky, right? People, it's no longer the days of you can have any Model T Ford color car as long as it's black. Now it's you pull out an app, you say, I want this car, I want this mileage, I want these additions to it, I want to pick it up in 2 minutes, because everything's like an Uber type of app now. So people are so picky, and things need to be so customized. So the way to be customized is to always be thinking about what kind of little videos you can put out there. What sort of people can you be talking to? Shows you can be on, people who can be on your show. And then that helps build your following. And then you get a little more dialed in there as far as then there's the phase of, who am I going after, right? Who do I want to buy from me? Who can I help? Who are these potential clients? And it doesn't have to be all done in a day. If you try to do it all in a day, there wouldn't be enough time. But some of these kind of habits, I guess, we've been talking about here today are all things that you can be doing just with a little bit of effort every day, with an imperfect background, with an imperfect microphone. Just get out there and just do it and make some connections and teach some cool stuff.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Every little bite eats the elephant, like they say. It's just one bite at a time, And there's I'm gonna share one more technique. I'm not gonna share all your techniques, but one more technique that you do that I was like, wow, this is amazing. So you send up a follow-up email and state, hey, we would love to have you share one of your aha moments, and share it, send it to us. Here's the requirements. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll share that with our audience. And then you wrap it, and basically you share with your audience, but you also do the mention technique. And then they, of course, have social content that they can share with their audience. And I thought that was brilliant. Because a lot of times you'll ask people to say, hey, can you send me a testimonial? Or, hey, can you send me a promo clip, or so forth and so on. And they're like, that's work. I don't know. I'll get around to it. But when you say, hey, just shoot me a quick short video, aha moment, send it over, and we'll go ahead and promote it. I thought that was, and I said, man, I need to put that into some of my practices moving forward.
And you know what? I need to do that again, because when you first started mentioning that, and you started saying the sentence, I'm like, what's he talking about? What was I doing? And then when you explained it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing I did like a year or two ago. And so a lot of things that I do and you do in our business, there's not really like a 5-year plan. We'll wake up one morning or 1 week and we'll say, you know what, I got this idea, I'm going to try this thing. And so I totally forgot that I did that. I need to go back and revisit it again. And so basically, yeah, like the way I see it is, I mentioned a few times, like the list, right? I've got this spreadsheet of all my past podcast guests, including yourself. And sometimes podcasting is sort of time consuming, right? If you had to go and hop on 5 shows today, you might not have time for anything else. And then I'm always concerned about kind of staying top of mind and always putting out episodes and content. And I'm not one of those guys that says, well, I have to put something out every Friday, but I definitely don't want to go a month without putting out any new podcast content. And I think honestly, one month or 1 week, I was just really busy, and I was maybe a little burned out from all the podcast interviewing. And I was like, I don't really have time this week or this month to keep doing interviews. I might even want a little bit of a break. So I think I just like sent an email to all those past podcast guests, including you. And I just said, usually we meet for like 20 minutes and I kind of ask you some questions and we do this and that, but you have been on my podcast previously. I know you, you know me. So can you just get on a video and record me a quick 10-minute thing, and I'll make that another podcast episode, and everybody wins, because now we don't have to spend the time figuring out a schedule and meeting, and maybe I'll pick that back up and get back on that again. And I did, But then, and it only took, I only sent one email, and all these hundreds of people got the message. And I think I got like maybe like 20 or so people responding. And I'm like, cool, there's 20 episodes. Now there's 20 new pieces of content. Now that's 20 emails I can send to my list over the next few weeks and say, here's this free episode, here's that free episode. Now that's all kinds of things I can post on social media. And so yeah, that is a technique, Jeff, I need to circle back and reuse, because it works so well that I completely forgot that I did it. And you know what? I think that's a good lesson in general for your clients. There's so many things that we do that we take for granted how easy it is for us. And other people are looking at us being like, whoa, how did he do that? How did he do the lighting behind him? Or like you say, like, well, I see in Jeff's glasses, there's like the ring lights behind him and his light looks really good. Like, how does he do that? And there are people out there who are looking through 20 different YouTube videos saying, like, how do I get my light in my room to be like Jeff's? And Jeff is on camera, and what camera does he use? What microphone does he use? What software platform does he use to do the meeting? How does he add the music to his show? Where does he put his podcast on there? How does he like automatically get it posted to social media? There's all these things that the people, there are people out there who want to do what we do, and they want our solutions. We just have to give it to them and pay attention when someone like you just now was like, there's this technique that you do that's really cool. I mean, I need to make a podcast episode and or a YouTube video explaining what you just said, because like I'm amazed that I haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I always tell clients, have a strategy, have a system in place, strategy mapped out, and then find the best ways to implement that strategy. And some of the best ways of implementing that strategy is to find people that just know what they're doing and let them do it, instead of trying to be an expert at everything, and you just do what you do best, whatever that is that you do best. So, Robert has an actual program, a done for you podcasting. He actually helps you set up these different strategies and systems, and how to podcast, and how to feel comfortable on camera, and how to get guests, how to follow up, all of those things. So, I would encourage you that, first of all, get it done. So however you're going to get it done. But if it takes way too much for you to try to figure it out, it's no sense in pulling your hair out. You have somebody that knows how to do it and has so many techniques that you're bound to win. It's like Batman. He has a utility belt with so many tools. It's like, well, let's pick some tools that'll work for you. So I would encourage you to reach out to him and at least get the ball rolling. And find out how I can help you. And then I'm not even going to mention all the books that have been written, but definitely go over to Marketer of the Day podcast, because that has several different episodes that you can learn from as well there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Batman as the analogy, and Batman's got all these tools, but Batman also has a lot of other people helping him out, right? There's there's like Lucius Fox with all the inventions. There's Commissioner Gordon. There's Robin as his little sidekick. Yep. So you can't do it alone. And even if you could do it alone, you probably shouldn't, because then you'll be wasting your time doing all these $5 per hour tasks when you should be doing the $500 an hour task, which is having guests on your show and being on other shows. And I think, right around that time when I was asking all the guests for the little video clips was when I was getting burned out on my own podcast, because I do know how to edit a podcast. I do know how to add music and upload and add ID3 tagging and all these other things. But it's like, why, if I have 20 episodes in front of me, why would I do that? And so what happened here was over time, I built a team. And right now at dfypodcast.com, we have 9 full-time employees. And what we do is when we get someone who says, I want to have a podcast, and everyone's unique, but someone says, I want a podcast. So we set up a special little chat room where they say either they want us to take over an existing podcast, or probably like 80% of the time, they say, I have an idea for a new podcast. And we say, great. what is the podcast name? What do you want the graphic to look like? What do you want it to be about? What kind of guests do you want? Do you need help with ideas? Do you want us to add music in there? What social channels to post to? And even just listing all the things, even that's overwhelming. So imagine trying to go about and do it. And so your clients out there, if they've wanted a podcast, or if they wanted their networking to be more predictable and to have all this follow-up, maybe the reason why it hasn't worked out is because they've tried to do it themselves and they've tried to make it too complicated. And like you said, you should be just focusing on what you do best and what is fun for you. You should be strengthening your strengths. Don't try to strengthen your weaknesses. That's just trying to, fight your way uphill. And so our DFY podcast service, we put you in a chat room and we ask you some questions. And then you can, anytime you have a new recording, you say, I met with this client and we did a podcast episode with them. And here you go. There's the episode. We get to work and we go and we create what's called podcast notes. So we find all the relevant links and the quotes and we put in little timestamps and say, at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, Jeff said this about ClickFunnels or something like that. And so we post it to your podcast host and YouTube and your blog. We can create social graphics for you to put on the different social media platforms. And so there's all these things that go into making a successful podcast that you probably aren't doing, that one single person, even if you're the best person in the world, would not have time to do all this stuff. And it frees you up to kind of think of some of these outside the box techniques, like you mentioned earlier about getting the 10-minute clip. But I mean, something to think about is all your clients is, once you say you're a Jeff Beal, Mr. Marketology client, right? That client should be on Jeff's show, right? If someone's already paying you money, or if they've paid you a lot of money, get them on your show. That way they'll be a customer for life. That way they can see the value. That way you're always, intertwined, intermingled with that person. And then there are probably a lot of people out there that would not give you the time of day. They would not answer your emails. They would not pick up the phone. But if you had them on your show, suddenly they're paying attention to you. And so there's all kinds of little outside the box things to do that, of like keeping your existing clients around, expanding your sphere of influence, and any kind of networking situation. Because at the beginning, I was talking about going to conferences and things like that, but now there's meetups, now there's Zoom stuff, now there's Facebook groups. And so instead of letting all of those potential leads go to waste, if you go to an event, you do some kind of networking and you say, okay, see you never, let me get your business card and put it in my wallet, and then it goes to the trash. Think about, are there like 5 people that you can follow up with later on and have them on your podcast? If there is like an industry conference that you are attending, whether it's remote like some things are, or live, what if you contacted all of those speakers, right? What if there was some event and there's 20 speakers? What if we did a little bit of sleuthing and found each one on LinkedIn or found their emails, and you contacted those 20 speakers at that event, and you got maybe 2 of them on your podcast? And I mean, you don't know unless you're trying. And maybe this is like an event with like 2,000 attendees, and you landed that person. And now you're associated with like a Michael Gerber type of person, someone who's like, super famous. And so if you can free yourself up and get away from the technical stuff and start thinking about the strategy, as you mentioned here, Jeff, you can have a lot of fun. And I mean, I've had fun sometimes recording like 60-second videos. And there's some people that I've been kind of working on over time to get on my show. For a couple of years, I was working on Grant Cardone. I didn't quite get him on my show, but I was like contacting some of his underlings and some of his employees and some of his salespeople. And sometimes some of these like software vendors, they'll try to work on me. Like I'll get like cold emails. They say, oh, can you start using our service? And I'll say, get on my show instead. So I had someone from like MindMeister get on my show. I had someone from Zapier get on my show. And now we're forever kind of intermingled. So there's so many untapped possibilities as far as the list, the spreadsheet. So get away from the technical details and get to some strategy, just like you say, Jeff.
Yeah. And I love that. I do the same thing. Whenever I get people coming in, I'll be like, hey, let's do an interview. And some of them are great interviews. And I love interviewing, especially the practitioners, the ones that have their hands in it, versus more of the spokespeople. They may not have marketed in years because they run the company, they're the face of the company. But those that are actually doing it, those are for me, the more exciting podcasts, because they're like, hey, this is what we do every day. This is my passion. And I'm not just field stories and so forth. So, I do the same thing. If a software company reaches out to me, I'll be like, hey, you want to be on the show? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Either way, it's worthwhile, because that way you don't have to necessarily have the awkwardness of saying like, oh, sorry, I wasted your time, I'm not really that interested, because even if they didn't get a sale from you, they still benefited because they got you to promote them, and then you win too because now you're promoting them as well.
Yeah.
So it's still a lot of fun, and it's a conversation. And like sometimes I'll have some guests on my show and we'll get really off topic and we'll just kind of talk about some other thing. Like sometimes I had like a luxury real estate person on my show, like someone, if she wants to like sell like a big mansion that has like 3 pools, she hopped on and she was just talking about like leadership advice and entrepreneurial advice, and we still got a lot of out of it, and she still snuck in some of like the her skills and stuff like that. So if someone was looking for like a luxury realtor in like the Atlanta area, then she'd still benefit because we put that in the keywords and the title of the podcast episode. So she still got her search engine ranking. And then, but then, we get this whole other audience of people, and you never know who's listening, right? Someone might be listening for the reason of they want to get the entrepreneurial advice or they want to get the industry advice. And some people, maybe they're there looking for information, but some people are just listening to see if you know what you're talking about, so then they can hire you. So sometimes people aren't even listening to you to learn. They just say, okay, I don't care about learning. I care about getting like the podcast set up. So I'll just listen and see like, okay, does it seem like you know your stuff? Okay, don't teach me podcasting. Let me just go and buy from you. And isn't that a way easier sell for you if someone comes to you already warmed up because they've already heard you on a podcast? You don't have to, convince someone to do all these tricks and teach them all this stuff. They're already ready and raring to go because they're a podcast listener.
That's true. Good point. They now have gotten to know, like, and trust you. So all in one setting. So that's the beauty of podcasting. So thanks, Rob, for coming on, man. And, thanks again for just being a friend and keeping in contact, over the years, and sharing with my audience, different ways that they can leverage podcasting and get out there and pretty much expand their brand awareness with their voice. So
and start somewhere. Like a podcast can be one episode. It can be just 5 minutes. It can be you saying, here's what I'm all about. Here's what I do. Just start somewhere. Just do something. Don't make it complicated. Jeff doesn't want you to do that. He wants you to take some massive imperfect action. So go do it.
Exactly. Don't overthink it. I'm a witness. You can overthink it, and next thing you know, a year goes by and you haven't done anything. So don't overthink it. Just get out there. Imperfect, but it'll be out there, and you'll see and having something perfect that never gets out the box. Never. So everybody,
do it. You'll be glad you did.
Yes. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. It's the marketing strategy session, and we have Robert on with us from Done For You podcast, and also he has the Marketer of the Day podcast. So definitely jump over to his podcast. Has a lot of great information there, and you can hear some of his 840 now, right? 846 or 47.
840. Just 840.
840 podcasts out there. So you definitely will have a full day worth of listening that you can do once you jump over there. So again, everybody, thank you. And tomorrow we'll have another one for you.